Lost in the Woods, What Hunts in the Darkness. Scary story published by Scare Fiction. Chapter 1. Into the Wilderness. The city lights faded behind me as I drove deeper into the wilderness, the road winding through towering trees like sentinels guarding the secrets of the forest. My name is Alex, and I've always considered myself a rational person, grounded in the concrete reality of urban life. Yet, as I ventured further from civilization, a nagging sense of unease began to creep into my mind. I had agreed to this camping trip reluctantly, goaded by my friends, who claimed I needed to get out of my comfort zone. They didn't understand my skepticism towards the supernatural tales that surrounded these woods. Legends of strange happenings and mysterious disappearances had persisted for generations, but I brushed them off as nothing more than superstition. As we arrived at the campsite, the dense forest loomed around us like a living entity, its dark canopy blocking out the fading light of day. My friends, Sarah, Mark, and Jake, eagerly unloaded the car, their excitement palpable as they prepared for a night of adventure. I couldn't help but feel like an outsider amidst their enthusiasm. "We're going to have so much fun, Alex," Sarah exclaimed, her eyes sparkling with excitement. I forced a smile, nodding along as I tried to quell the growing sense of unease in my stomach. Deep down, I couldn't shake the feeling that something wasn't right about this place. As night fell, the forest came alive with the eerie sounds of nocturnal creatures. Branches creaked in the wind, and strange rustlings echoed through the darkness. Despite my best efforts to ignore it, a sense of foreboding settled over me like a suffocating blanket. Gathering around the crackling campfire, we shared stories and laughter, but my mind kept drifting back to the legends I'd heard about these woods. I couldn't shake the feeling that we were being watched, that unseen eyes lurked in the shadows, observing our every move. As the fire dwindled and the night grew darker, I reluctantly followed my friends into our tent, the thin fabric offering little protection against the unknown horrors that lurked outside. I lay awake, listening to the symphony of the forest, my heart pounding in my chest. Tomorrow, I told myself, I would prove to them and to myself that there was nothing to fear in these woods. But as sleep eluded me and the darkness pressed in around us, I couldn't shake the feeling that we were not alone, that something sinister lurked just beyond the edge of our campsite, waiting to reveal itself in the dead of night. Chapter 2. The Ominous Nightfall. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows across the forest floor, a palpable tension settled over our group. The jovial atmosphere from earlier faded into an uneasy silence, broken only by the crackling of the dwindling campfire. I glanced around at my friends, their faces drawn and anxious in the dim light. Sarah chewed nervously on her fingernails, while Mark scanned the tree line with furrowed brows. Even Jake, the most fearless among us, seemed on edge, his usual bravado replaced by a wary vigilance. Strange noises began to echo through the woods, breaking the stillness of the night. Branches snapped under unseen weight, and low growls rumbled in the distance. My heart pounded in my chest as primal instincts screamed at me to flee, to seek refuge from whatever unseen horrors lurked in the darkness. "We need to stay calm," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. "It's probably just animals, nothing to worry about." But my words rang hollow in the oppressive silence, and I could see the fear reflected in my friend's eyes. The forest seemed to close in around us, suffocating us with its ancient secrets and malevolent whispers. "We should never have come here," Sarah muttered, her voice trembling with fear. I reached out to comfort her, but before I could speak, a blood-curdling scream pierced the night air. We froze, our hearts stopping in our chests as the sound echoed through the trees. "Did you hear that?" Mark whispered, his voice barely audible over the pounding of my heart. Another scream shattered the silence, closer this time, sending a jolt of terror coursing through my veins. Panic gripped us as we scrambled to our feet, searching frantically for the source of the sound. "We need to get out of here," Jake said, his voice hoarse with fear. But as we turned to flee, a dark figure emerged from the shadows, its eyes gleaming with malevolent intent. Frozen in terror, we watched as it advanced towards us, a sinister presence in the heart of the night. With nowhere to run and nowhere to hide, we huddled together, praying for morning to come and banish the darkness that threatened to consume us. But as the night stretched on, our fears only grew stronger, and we realized that in the heart of the forest, there was no escape from the ominous nightfall. Chapter 3: The Disappearance. The night had descended upon us like a suffocating blanket, and fear hung heavy in the air as we huddled together, desperate for the dawn to break and banish the darkness that threatened to consume us. But as the hours dragged on, our hopes dwindled, replaced by a gnawing dread that settled deep in our bones. It was Sarah who noticed first a lone figure missing from our huddled group. Panic surged through us as we realized one of our own had vanished into the night, swallowed by the shadows that lurked just beyond our campsite. "Where is he?" Mark demanded, his voice trembling with fear. "He couldn't have just disappeared." We searched frantically, calling out into the darkness, but there was no answer, only the eerie silence of the forest, broken only by the occasional rustle of leaves and the distant hoot of an owl. "He must have wandered off," Jake suggested, his voice unsteady. "We need to find him before it's too late." With trembling hands and racing hearts, we ventured into the darkness, our flashlights casting feeble beams of light that barely pierced the inky blackness. Each step filled us with dread, the shadows seeming to reach out and grasp at us, threatening to drag us into the abyss. But our search was in vain. There was no sign of our missing friend, no trace of where he had gone. Panic surged through us as we realized the gravity of our situation. We were alone in the heart of the forest, with no one to rely on but each other. As the hours stretched on, exhaustion set in, our bodies weary from the relentless search. But even in our weariness, we dared not rest, for we knew that in the darkness, unseen dangers lurked, waiting to claim us as their own. And then, just as hope began to fade, we heard it, a low, guttural growl echoing through the trees. Terror gripped us as we realized we were not alone in the forest, that something sinister lurked just beyond the edge of our campsite, watching and waiting. With trembling hands and racing hearts, we huddled together, praying for morning to come and banish the darkness that threatened to consume us. But as the night stretched on, we realized that in the heart of the forest, there was no escape from the horrors that lurked in the shadows. Chapter 4: Unearthly Encounters. As the darkness tightened its grip on the forest, I found myself alone, separated from my friends by the twisting labyrinth of trees. The beam of my flashlight flickered weakly, casting long shadows that danced eerily across the forest floor. I stumbled forward, my heart pounding in my chest as I searched for any sign of my friends. But as I ventured deeper into the darkness, a sense of foreboding washed over me, a feeling that I was not alone in the forest. And then I saw them grotesque shapes lurking in the shadows, their twisted forms barely visible in the dim light. They moved with sinister grace, their eyes gleaming with malevolent intelligence that creeped up my soul. I froze, unable to tear my eyes away from the nightmarish creatures that surrounded me. Fear clawed at my throat as I struggled to comprehend what I was seeing. Were these the same entities that had taken my friend? But as I watched, frozen in terror, the creatures drew closer, their movements fluid and predatory. Panic surged through me as I realized I was their next target, that I was doomed to share the same fate as my missing friend. With trembling hands, I fumbled for my flashlight, desperately trying to fend off the encroaching darkness. But it was no use. The creatures closed in, their twisted forms looming over me like specters from a nightmare. I closed my eyes, praying for salvation, but when I opened them again, the creatures were gone, vanished into the darkness as if they had never been. I stumbled backwards, my mind reeling with disbelief. Had I imagined it all? But as I searched for answers, a voice echoed in the depths of my mind, a whisper of ancient knowledge that spoke of things long forgotten. And with a sinking heart, I realized that the creatures were real, that they had been watching me all along, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. As I stumbled back towards the safety of my campsite, I knew that my encounter with the unearthly entities had changed me forever. And as I reunited with my friends, I realized that our bonds had been tested in ways we could never have imagined, that the true horrors of the forest were far more terrifying than we had ever dared to believe. Chapter 5. Ancient Legends. As the night wore on and the shadows deepened, we huddled together around the dying embers of our campfire, seeking solace in each other's presence. But even in our shared fear, a sense of unease lingered, a feeling that we were being watched by unseen eyes. It was Sarah who first mentioned the legends, tales passed down through generations of locals, whispered in hushed tones around flickering campfires. Legends of a malevolent entity that roamed these woods, preying on unsuspecting travelers who dared to venture too deep into its domain. At first, we dismissed the stories as nothing more than superstition, the product of overactive imaginations and too many nights spent alone in the wilderness. But as the night wore on and the darkness pressed in around us, we began to wonder if there might be some truth to the tales. Desperation gnawed at us as we searched for answers, scouring the depths of our memories for any hint of the entity's true nature. And as we delved deeper into the legends, a sense of dread settled over us like a suffocating blanket, the gravity of our situation pressing down on us with relentless force. "We need to get out of here," Mark said, his voice strained with fear, "before it's too late." But even as he spoke, we knew that escape was impossible, that we were trapped in the heart of the forest with no hope of rescue. And as the realization sank in, a cold knot formed in the pit of my stomach, the weight of our impending doom bearing down on me with crushing force. With trembling hands, I reached for my flashlight, the weak beam casting feeble shadows that danced across the forest floor. But even in the dim light, I could sense the malevolent presence that lurked just beyond our campsite, watching and waiting with bated breath. As we huddled together, the legends of the forest's dark history echoing in our minds, I knew that our only hope lay in confronting the entity head-on, in facing our deepest fears and emerging victorious against the darkness that threatened to consume us. But as the night stretched on and the darkness pressed in around us, I realized that the true horror of the forest was not the malevolent entity that lurked within its depths, but the darkness that dwelled within our own hearts, waiting to be unleashed at the first sign of weakness. Chapter 6. Fight for Survival. As the first light of dawn crept over the horizon, we gathered together, our faces drawn and grim as we prepared to face the horrors that lurked within the forest. With our missing friends still weighing heavy on our hearts, we knew that our only hope lay in devising a plan to evade the creature and find him before it was too late. "We need to stick together," Sarah said, her voice firm with determination. "No matter what happens, we can't let fear tear us apart." But even as she spoke, I could sense the tension simmering beneath the surface, the conflicting personalities within our group threatening to unravel our fragile unity. Mark paced restlessly, his eyes darting nervously around the campsite, while Jake muttered darkly under his breath, his usual bravado replaced by a wary vigilance. "We should split up," Mark suggested, his voice tinged with desperation. It'll increase our chances of finding him." But Sarah shook her head, her expression resolute. "No, we need to stay together. Strength in numbers, remember." With a begrudging nod, Mark conceded, though I could see the doubt flickering in his eyes. Tensions simmered as we set out into the forest, each step filled with the weight of uncertainty and fear. Each encounter with the entity pushed us closer to the brink of terror, its malevolent presence lurking just beyond the edge of our vision. We moved with caution, our senses on high alert for any sign of danger, but the creature remained elusive, a shadowy specter that seemed to taunt us with its presence. With each passing hour, the tension within our group grew, the conflicting personalities clashing under the pressure of our desperate situation. Tempers flared, and accusations flew as fear and suspicion gnawed at our resolve, threatening to tear us apart from within. But amidst the chaos, a flicker of hope emerged, a faint trail of footprints leading deeper into the forest, a sign that our missing friend was still alive. With renewed determination, we followed the trail, our hearts pounding in our chests as we drew closer to our goal. And then, just when it seemed like all hope was lost, we stumbled upon him battered and bruised, but alive. Relief washed over us in a wave as we gathered around him, offering words of comfort and reassurance. But our joy was short-lived, for even as we celebrated our reunion, the creature emerged from the shadows, its eyes gleaming with malevolent intent. With a primal roar, it lunged towards us, its twisted form a terrifying testament to the darkness that lurked within the forest. With nowhere to run and nowhere to hide, we stood our ground, facing the creature head-on with a courage born of desperation. And as the battle raged around us, I knew that our fight for survival was far from over, that the true test of our strength lay in confronting the darkness that threatened to consume us all. Chapter 7: The Sacrifice. As the creature bore down upon us, with savage fury, desperation seized hold of our hearts, driving us to the brink of madness. With each swipe of its clawed limbs, we were reminded of our own mortality, of the fragility of our existence in the face of such overwhelming darkness. In a desperate bid to save ourselves, we faced a harrowing choice: sacrifice one of our own to appease the creature and buy ourselves precious time to escape. The air crackled with tension as we weighed the gravity of our decision, the weight of our mortality pressing down on us with suffocating force. "We can't just leave him behind," Sarah pleaded, her voice shaking with emotion. "We have to do something." But even as she spoke, I could see the doubt flickering in her eyes, the fear of what lay ahead gnawing at her resolve. And as the reality of our situation sank in, I knew that sacrifices would have to be made if any of us were to survive. With a heavy heart, we turned to our friend, his eyes filled with a mixture of fear and resignation. "I'll do it," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. "I'll buy you time to escape." Tears welled in our eyes as we embraced him, words of gratitude and sorrow tumbling from our lips. But even as we said our farewells, a shadow of doubt lingered in the back of our minds, the fear that betrayal and self-preservation would take precedence over loyalty and sacrifice. As our friend faced the creature alone, we fled into the darkness, our hearts heavy with guilt and remorse. Each step echoed with the weight of our decision, the knowledge that we had left one of our own behind to face a fate worse than death. And as we stumbled through the forest, the sound of our friends' screams echoing in our ears, trust shattered like glass, leaving behind nothing but the bitter taste of betrayal. For in the end, survival was all that mattered, even if it meant sacrificing everything we held dear. As the dawn broke over the horizon, we emerged from the forest, forever changed by the horrors we had witnessed. But even as we left the darkness behind, the memory of our sacrifice lingered, a haunting reminder of the lengths we would go to in the name of self-preservation. Chapter 8. Confronting the Darkness. With resolve burning in my chest, like a wildfire, I stepped forward, determined to confront the entity that had haunted our every step, to put an end to the nightmare that had consumed us all. The forest seemed to close in around me, the shadows pressing in with suffocating force, but I pushed onward, driven by a primal instinct to survive. As I ventured deeper into the heart of the forest, the air grew thick with a sense of foreboding, the oppressive weight of the darkness bearing down on me with relentless force. But I refused to be deterred, my steps steady and sure as I approached the creature's lair. And then, suddenly, it was there before me, a twisted, nightmarish form that seemed to defy comprehension, its eyes gleaming with malevolent intent. Fear surged through me like a tidal wave, threatening to engulf me in its icy embrace, but I stood my ground, steeling myself for the battle that lay ahead. A battle of wills ensued as I confronted my deepest fears, the creature's presence looming over me like a specter from a forgotten nightmare. Memories flashed before my eyes of lost friends, of sacrifices made in the name of survival, and I felt a surge of determination wash over me, a fierce resolve to see this through to the end. With a primal roar, I charged forward, my fists clenched with righteous fury as I unleashed a barrage of blows upon the creature's twisted form. But with each strike, it seemed to grow stronger, its malevolent laughter echoing through the darkness like a sinister symphony. The line between reality and nightmare blurred as the battle raged on, the forest swirling around me in a maelstrom of chaos and confusion. I felt myself slipping, losing grip on the fragile thread of sanity that tethered me to reality. But still, I fought on, driven by an unyielding desire to survive. And then, just when it seemed like all hope was lost, I saw a glimmer of light shining through the darkness, a beacon of hope in the heart of the forest. With renewed determination, I pressed forward, my resolve burning brighter than ever as I faced the creature head-on. With one final, desperate blow, I struck out at the entity, channeling all of my strength and determination into the attack. And then, in an instant, it was over, the creature's twisted form crumbling to dust before my eyes, its malevolent presence dissipating into the ether. As I stood amidst the ruins of the battle, the forest silent around me, I felt a sense of peace wash over me, a feeling of triumph in the face of overwhelming darkness. And as I emerged from the heart of the forest, forever changed by the horrors I had witnessed, I knew that I had faced my deepest fears and emerged victorious, stronger, and more resilient than ever before. Chapter 9. Redemption and Reckoning. As the first rays of dawn broke over the horizon, casting a warm glow across the forest floor, revelations about the true nature of the entity and its connection to my past came to light. Memories long buried resurfaced, fragments of a forgotten past piecing together like a jigsaw puzzle in my mind. I had always felt a strange connection to the forest, a sense of familiarity that I couldn't quite explain. But as the pieces fell into place, I realized that my ties to this place ran deeper than I had ever imagined. The entity that had haunted our every step was not some malevolent force born of the darkness, but a manifestation of my own inner demons, a twisted reflection of the darkness that lurked within my own soul. It had been drawn to me, feeding off of my fear and desperation, using me as a vessel to wreak havoc upon the world. But even as I grappled with this revelation, a sense of redemption washed over me, a glimmer of hope in the face of overwhelming darkness. I knew that I had a chance to make things right, to confront the demons that had haunted me for so long and emerge from the darkness stronger and more resilient than ever before. With determination burning in my chest like a wildfire, I set out to seek redemption, to confront the darkness that had consumed me and emerge victorious against all odds. The journey was long and arduous, filled with trials and tribulations that tested my resolve to the breaking point. But with the support of my friends by my side, I pressed forward, my heart filled with a newfound sense of purpose. And as we ventured deeper into the heart of the forest, I knew that the final showdown was inevitable, that our fate would be decided in the crucible of battle. And so it was that we found ourselves standing once more in the presence of the entity, its twisted form looming over us like a specter from a forgotten nightmare. But this time, I was ready to confront my deepest fears and emerge victorious against the darkness that threatened to consume us all. With a primal roar, I charged forward, my fists clenched with righteous fury as I unleashed a barrage of blows upon the creature's twisted form. But this time, there was no hesitation, no fear, only determination and resolve burning bright in my chest. And then, in an instant, it was over, the creature's twisted form crumbling to dust before my eyes, its malevolent presence dissipating into the ether. I stood amidst the ruins of the battle, my heart pounding in my chest as I realized that I had emerged victorious, stronger, and more resilient than ever before. As the first light of dawn broke over the horizon, casting a warm glow across the forest floor, I knew that our journey through the darkness had come to an end. And as we emerged from the heart of the forest, forever changed by the horrors we had witnessed, I knew that redemption was within reach, a glimmer of hope in the face of overwhelming darkness. Chapter 10, Into the Light. As we emerged from the depths of the forest, the first rays of dawn kissed our faces, filling us with a sense of warmth and renewal. We were survivors, forever changed by the horrors we had witnessed, but determined to forge ahead, stronger and more resilient than ever before. Though scarred by our experiences, we found solace in the newfound strength that had emerged from the crucible of adversity. Each step forward was a testament to our resilience, a reminder that even in the darkest of times, there is always hope. But as we left the woods behind, a haunting question lingered in the back of our minds: what truly hunts in the darkness? The entity that had plagued us had been vanquished, but the shadows that lurked within our own hearts remained, a constant reminder of the fragility of our existence. We carried the memories of our ordeal with us, like scars etched into our souls, but we refused to let them define us. Instead, we drew strength from our shared experiences, using them as fuel to propel us forward into the light. And as we walked, our footsteps echoing in the silence of the forest, I knew that we had emerged from the darkness forever changed. But even as we left the woods behind, I couldn't shake the feeling that something lingered in the shadows, watching and waiting with bated breath. Perhaps it was the lingering effects of our ordeal, the trauma of what we had witnessed, still fresh in our minds. Or perhaps it was something more sinister, something that defied explanation and lurked just beyond the edge of our understanding. But as we walked, I knew that whatever hunted in the darkness, we would face it together, united in our determination to overcome whatever obstacles lay in our path. For we were survivors, forged in the fires of adversity, and nothing could stand in our way as we stepped boldly into the light.